Hello, everyone. I'm just going to hello, thank you, hello. Don't worry, it's not a stand-up routine. It isn't the start of anything. State of the nation is something, I don't know what that means. I guess it means just speak about everything. So I'm going to try and do that. From a point of view of my perspective and the perspective of Curve Games. Quick intro to start with. This year marks my 25th year in the games industry. So it feels like an incredibly long time. I'm in my 50s now. When I joined the games industry, I was at the tail end of my 20s. So I guess that's many, many decades of my life covered in the games industry. And throughout that time, so I joined the games industry in 1997. And I joined a London-based company, BMG Interactive. And I was just thinking how many things have changed since then. And my first job when I joined BMG Interactive, I was basically a national account manager selling games in boxes on PlayStation 1, PC, Nintendo 64 to the UK retail sector, which included names such as Virgin, Toys R Us, Woolworths. Electronics Boutique, you know, how things have changed. But Toys R Us are an interesting one of the biggest toy retailers in the world at the time. And one of my first jobs, being brand new to the games industry, was to go in and sell them this new game that I'd never heard of, being new to the industry. And this new game was called Grand Theft Auto, released in 1997, developed by DMA Design up in Dundee. Fantastic game. I liked it, but the buyer at Toys R Us wasn't too keen. By default, you'll work out that Grand Theft Auto is in its 25th year as well. Now, I don't work for the company anymore. I did then. 25 years later on, we see what GTA has brought to the UK games industry. And my feeling is that started somewhere. It started then from a studio that people had heard of before. They were famous for Lemmings, DMA Design, but it started then. Who'd have known what it was going to go on to create? When I used to go into BMG to work, I used to drive an hour and a half. I was committed. I wanted to go a long way. I was living up in Oxfordshire, and I drove down to Putney. And I left early to beat the traffic, because it could take a lot longer. When I got there, sat at my desk, it was so early that nobody was working. I had to leave at the crack of dawn. So I filled my time before all the buyers came in, playing Championship Manager 2, 97-98, which again, a fantastic game, developed in the UK, developed in London by Sports Interactive. And unfortunately, because of playing that game from 7:30 every weekday morning, I actually didn't start my sales calls till about 11:30, because I just completely lost track of time. Little did I know that that started the relationship between me and Championship Manager, now Football Manager, that would last my entire career. 2 years later, in 1999, I was working for Sega. Sorry, I wasn't. I was working for Eidos. And Eidos, of course, were publishing Championship Manager. And that was the first time I started to meet Sports Interactive, an incredible studio. And of course, Championship Manager had to start somewhere as well. Started a little bit before Grand Theft Auto. Throughout my 8 years at Eidos, I worked on countless versions of Championship Manager. Championship Manager and Sports Interactive left Eidos at one stage to go and partner with Sega Europe. Shortly after I followed, I joined Sega Europe in 2007 and continued my relationship with Sports Interactive and Football Manager, as it was then called. I gave about 20 years of my life in that relationship with, if you know Miles Jacobson, he's a wonderful person to spend time with, and he will correct you if you get something slightly wrong. And that was really, really good, because that was my first, I guess, two of my most important lessons come from that period. One is content. Championship Manager, Football Manager, Grand Theft Auto. Look how long those games have lasted. Look how long they've endured. They engage audiences. That's what we'd say now. Back then we used to say we'd sell lots of copies. But now they engage audiences. We see how long they engage audiences for. The other thing that's constant is the developer talent, the creative output. And we'll touch on a lot of things that change in the industry, but there are two things that are constant to me. One of them is the game, and the other one is the developer. And they're still there. 25 years, 30 years. DMA Design have launched so many developers. We're working with one now that I'm at Curve, a small studio in Dundee called Denki, fantastic studio. They all worked on the original GTA with DMA in Dundee all those years ago. My journey from Sega Europe took me to Tencent in 2019. I started pre-pandemic, and then I enjoyed part of the pandemic with Tencent before leaving that 45,000-person tech behemoth to join the 45-person not tech behemoth Curve Games. And it's here where I'm CEO, and I'm CEO of what is a private equity-backed, London-based publisher, and I'm going to talk you through some of the things that are important to us. I'll mention some numbers. They're huge. They're nothing to do with Curve. The smaller numbers are everything to do with Curve. Here's the agenda. I'm going to talk about the market, future technology, publishing, people, and work, and you will wonder why you've come to any other session in this festival. You could have just come to this one, and you'd have learned everything in what is now 25 minutes. Let me state the obvious. People are buying games. Audiences are engaged, as I said before. Subscription models are growing. Technology continues to evolve. There's a surprise. And traditional growth remains. But the story behind all of this is, we know consumers are buying games. We've gone through the record year in 2020. $175 billion was the global games industry figure. What an incredible, I can't get my head around that. I think, that was the biggest year ever, supported by the pandemic. A lot of people were at home a long time, and games helped people through the pandemic, certainly in my house. We maintained $175 million, $175 billion in 2021. So, we're scheduled for 2023 to go through 200 billion. I think that's what all the analysts say. So we know the market is growing. Customers are buying games. So far this year, we see customers spending a lot of money on AAA releases, whether it's Horizon, whether it's Elden Ring. These games are being purchased, with the fervor that, people have always been engaging in games. Audiences are engaged. Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto Online, people are playing these games for longer. Subscription models growing. I think 25 million, Harvey will correct me, 25 million Game Pass subscribers, I believe, Harvey. That subscription is changing the way we think about it. And if you're not thinking about how gamers can engage with your content through subscription models, you're missing a trick. We all have to think about that. Technology continues to evolve. What is constant are the creators and the games, obviously. And we'll touch on technology and how we think about it. And traditional growth remains. I think with Steam topping out in the pandemic at 120 million monthly active users, we see the audiences are incredible. When we see the combined platforms, the console platforms from Nintendo, Microsoft, and PlayStation delivering 300 million consoles, we know there are lots of players. And traditional growth remains. Future technology. I was on a panel about 3 weeks ago, and someone mentioned Web 3.0, and I said to somebody, what's Web 3.0? And because I never thought about it like this before, so I sort of set to figure out what Web 2.0 and 3.0 is. And if you don't know, my simple way of doing it is Web 1.0 is like black and white television. A lot of you won't remember. Stuart, you will. Web 2.0 is like color television, and Web 3.0, I guess, is like immersive TV experiences. But Web 2.0, I think what it means to us is FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Companies that have changed the way that we communicate with each other and we communicate with content. So within all those companies, they fund the creation of content. They provide technology that allows us as consumers to engage and interact with content in a different way. They support developers to create content for their platform that allows us to engage in it. And they've fundamentally changed the way that we work. Web 3.0, metaverse, blockchain, VR, AR, AI, NFT, everybody will have opinions to a certain extent on all of that. And the opinion that some of that will change the way we engage with content is probably a correct opinion. Why wouldn't it change the way we engage with content? We can already see that VR, which is starting to come through now, is starting to get traction. I get three things that impact us, or three things that we consider as consumers with new content is, firstly, can we use it? Can we figure out what it is? How do, when I open the box, what do I do with this device? How do I access the new technology? The second thing is, can I afford it? How much does it cost to access this new technology? The third thing, potentially the most important, is there a killer app? Is the content? Is there a reason for me to engage in this new technology? And that's something as a publisher that we think about, not necessarily our opinion on NFT, and I'm sure this would be a great conversation if we just kicked that one off, but really what is the content? Who are the developers who are leveraging maybe the unique benefits that NFT bring? And can we add value to that as a publisher? But we've still got other priorities through Steam, through Xbox, through PlayStation, through Switch, because, you know, with 300 million consoles and 120 million monthly active users, we haven't reached anywhere near our capacity, and we're still going. And we haven't even moved into mobile, which, you know, when we think about Apple and Google, that provide us with a great platform. And I touch on, you know, Curve. How do we think about that? I think about what is our role? What's the role of the publisher within it? Because it isn't necessarily our opinion on NFT. No one's really coming to the publisher for that, because we're not going to be creating anything for NFT. You know, but we'll be talking to developers, because we always talk to developers. Our two simple things of describing what we do is we assemble a portfolio. We build a portfolio of developers and content that we work with. And the most valuable thing that those developers want when they work with it, second most is funding, number one is marketing, distribution. How do we reach the biggest audience possible? And that's what we exist for. That's what Curve exists for, is to find great developers. We have a little tag phrase, games we love made by people we trust and respect. We've got a team going out there looking for content all the time, and we're selling our value. And our value is we can probably reach as big an audience as you could do by yourself. Let's put ourselves into context. There's 67 of us. There are over 26,000 UK games industry people. There's 70,000 people that are attached to the games industry working in the UK. There are 3.1 billion global players. If we think back to the $175 billion industry, there's something else that we need that sits behind those 3.1 billion global players. Out of those revenues, 50% of them are in the mobile industry. Over 50% of those revenues are in free-to-play. So you know that a lot of those 3.1 billion global players are playing games for free on mobile. So how do we access them? We haven't tapped into that at Curve yet. It's a real growth area for us, and one that we continually evaluate and investigate. We sum it up with our little guiding thought. Your vision, their world. It's our message to every developer that we speak to. We're not here because Curve are fantastic about defining the industry. We're here because we believe in your vision, and we think we can add value to make it their world. 3.1 billion people. We think we can help you access those players. And it says there, we exist to connect these two. But it's all about the developer vision. Where do you want to take your content? Going back to how we actually operate, who do we work with? Now, when I was at Sega Europe, I was there for 13 years. And Sega Europe is like a business within a business at Sega. And we work with five studios, primarily. Sports Interactive, Creative Assembly, 2 Point, Amplitude, and Relic, based in Vancouver. And Sega Europe worked with those 5 incredible studios to work on incredible franchises, and we globally publish it. Now at Curve, it's different. There's less of us. There's only 67 of us, but we work with 26 different developer partners currently. They're from 11 different countries. 9 are from the UK, which is great news. And we try to sign up 8 new partners every year. So what does that actually mean? Well, that means that we're dealing with a lot of creative talent. And for those of you who are developers here, you have your unique way of working. You have different characteristics. You have different creative aspirations. You have technology aspirations as well, and technology capabilities. And every time we work with a new developer, something new happens. We don't really know what it is until it happens. But we challenge ourselves as a publisher. We have to work with different people, with different ambitions, different requirements, different characters, different capabilities. And that puts pressure on our team, because we're building up a team of people. And you think about this within the pandemic. We talk about working from home. We talk about that focus time of being able to sort of balance our lives and focus on Zoom calls or team calls and plan our day. But when we're working with 26 different developers, that's all we're doing. What is our developer portfolio? What are the characteristics? How do we understand the nuances? Empathy is probably the biggest word in our dictionary. How do we really generate empathy if we can't talk to people and see them and get to spend time with them? That's been a real challenge over the last 2 years. And although we want balanced working to come back, we want to meet the people that we work with, understand their ambition and their requirements and their vision. Every time we're working on new games, we're working with new people, we're working with new teams. The amount of time that we spend and we're going to spend going forward at Curve in understanding how teams work is way off the scale compared to it was at Sega, because we were always working with the same 5 studios. We always had the same core group of people. It's a fantastic business. And I think that's the important one. Zero audience. I would say the majority of games that we launch, people have never heard of. They're new IPs. They're not Call of Duty. It's not FIFA, it's not Football Manager, it's not Total War, it's not Horizon. We are starting again with our 67 people working with 26 different developers, generally to think about how they launch a new franchise every single time. But 25 years ago with GTA, it started somewhere. And we're doing that because in 25 years' time, maybe we've helped launch that. And that's what keeps us going. That's what gives us the enjoyment to be part of the industry and to keep moving forward. Values are important. We connect our team through a series of values. And I've worked in companies before where I've put values in, and my ability to learn the best way of applying values has developed as well, because we used to create these wonderful, great sentences that includes everything from, energy, empathy, collaboration, diversity, everything in big sentences for everybody to remember. We've got 3 values: together, achieve, progress. We work together, we collaborate, we communicate, we support each other, achieve, execute. I wanted to use execute, but it didn't really fit in our values. I thought it was the wrong word to have. But this is about what you look for as a developer working with a publisher. You want to see something happen on launch day of your game. So do we. So we have to focus on how good we are at achieving that day one execution and then sustaining it. Human Fall Flat is one of our biggest games. It's been going for 5 years. We have day one execution and we have sustaining the brand over a period of time. And progress. Progress is not just about personal progress, but it's about our attitudes to the people that we work with. In 25 years, a lot of things change. And in 25 years, we have to make progress with how we look at our fellow workers, how we look at the environment that we work in, how we look at our practices. And when we think about people and culture, why is it important? At Curve, when I'm talking to people about joining, and it feels, just to give you a bit of background, Curve's been going about 8 or 9 years. I've been there since December 2020. And we're sort of reinventing Curve. We're a private equity-backed company. Our turnover is about 35 million pounds with a nice little profit on that. And we're going through a growth curve at the moment. And what we're trying to do is sort of bring ourselves together. We're forming a new team. I'll show you later that we've recruited quite a lot of people. And we're trying to define what we mean to ourselves and also to the industry. And to do that, everybody that we talk to about coming to join Curve is not about come and do the job. It's about come and make Curve into the company that you want it to be. Make an impact, influence it. We are not corporate. We're just starting, and it's down to us to shape it. So people shape our culture. But while they're at Curve, and they work at Curve, and any of you, whatever company you work at, you're also shaping your own identity. And the company that you work for has to enable you the freedom to shape your own identity and support that. It improves our company. If we're going to look at it in terms of cold, hard commercial success, to have people that are contributing to the culture and shaping their own identity is going to make us a better company, a better employer, probably better at selecting games that are going to be more successful because our games will reflect society. It means that we can be broader with our distribution opportunity. We know that China's the biggest market and 90% of the market in China is mobile free-to-play. We succeed in China, but we're only operating in the other 10% of the market. So how do we reflect society? Supporting each other, one of the biggest things. So I had, probably like many people, I went through a phase of the pandemic where it was great, it was exciting, it was focused, my diet was great, I was going out on my bike most nights and I was joining every call. It was fantastic. But after time, I started to get depressed. I Certainly in the winter, when it all went dark and I couldn't really go out, couldn't walk my dog. And you only need a few things to go off track, and it sort of made me a little bit rocky. I was so glad, as soon as I could at Curve, I started to go into the office again. Not 5 days a week. I'm not pushing 5 days a week, but I met people. When I was at home with my wife, working from home, and if she said to me, would you like a cup of tea, or shall we stop for lunch? Don't talk to me. I've got a Teams call in 2 minutes. Go away, I cannot waste time. I've got call after call after call. One of the biggest things I had to go through when I was going back into the office was actually standing casually, going to a coffee machine and talking to someone. I never said, I haven't told my wife this, but I never said to them, go away, I've got a call in 2 minutes. I said, yeah, let's have a coffee. That was incredible for me. It made me remember what I'd lost sort of pre-pandemic. On top of that, the meaningful connections I learned from the people I work with. It doesn't matter how long they've been in the industry. I learn from them. And I think all of us want a reason to get up in the morning. And the people that we work with and the connections that we make are quite key to that. So let's look, this is a big thing, going on to how we measure our diversity. So some of these figures we're good, some of them we're less good, and we constantly work on it. If we look at the sort of UK census figures of sort of the diversity, international, games industry average is 10%, we're 17, female 30%, we're 28, white 90%, we're 82, black 5%, we're 4.5%, Asian 2%, we're 13.5%. So we look at this now because it is a measurement. It is a measurement. We have to make sure that we don't hire for measurements. That's in our mind, rightly or wrongly. We hire for the balance of the team and to reflect society and people to bring something positive to the company. Being 67 people, it only takes 2 hires to completely change all those numbers as well. So, sort of bear that in mind. But we're sort of pleased with the averages, and we can see the work that we've got to do, and we focus on that as we're building the company. Don't get your calculators out. Don't try and make any sense of these numbers. I'm going to read through them quickly. Firstly, the title, Work Community. We can call it team, we can call it family if we want, but I call it community because that's what I get, and that's what I think everybody gets out of coming to work. Why are these numbers important? March 2020 was when the pandemic started, was when we locked down. Curve have started 69 new people since then. We only employ 67 people today, so we've had a turnover of staff. Not only have we employed 69 new people when the pandemic started, when no one could come into the office, but we've got 67 today, less than we've employed. In fact, during that time, 27 people have left. If you try adding this all up at the end, it'll be wrong, so don't get me wrong, there isn't a total. When I joined in December 2020, there were 45 people that worked at Curve. Since December 20, including me, there have been 50 new starters. 50 new starters in just over a year. And we only had, pre-pandemic, there are 8 people that worked for Curve before we went into lockdown. It sort of still confuses me when I read that, so I've just put it down to 2 numbers. 67 people employed today, of which 50 new starters since December 2020. Now, if you want to talk about challenges, turnover, transition, belonging, connections, just the social impact of seeing people, I think it's summarized there. It's where is your home? Where is your work home? Where is your work community? And for us, the 50 new starters, everybody that comes in, we say, are you going to make an impact? We don't want you here to do a job. We want you to come here and make a difference. Make Curve into the company you want it to be. Those 50 new starters, hopefully, they'll build Curve into the company we all want it to be. Now, the working environment obviously has been touched on several times in the conversation before. And there are lots of questions that we ask ourselves because as we bring those 50 people in, they do all have differences. We have, being in London, we can attract talent in London. You mentioned one of the other sponsors, SharkMob, acquired by Tencent. I know, I was there. They can afford to really reward people to come and work for them. They can get better offices. They can grow to 200 people in London. They can pay the salaries. They can compete. It's really exciting. They can work on shiny AAA games. Curve don't. We don't have that. So we compete for people because we want to make it the company that people can shape. And we think that's really, really important. So we look at everything from remote, flexible working, 4-day week. A lot of people are talking about the 4-day week. Environment. Now, environment is a big thing. I think you mentioned about greenwashing, and hopefully we're not greenwashing, but for years I've been involved in a charity called Whale and Dolphin Conservation Fund. And what has been great for me at Curve is to be able to have the ability to make our partnership closer than I could make it at Sega, because it's how we shape the company. And we have a regular partnership with Whale and Dolphin Conservation Fund. We've just kicked off, knowing that we're going to start flying again. We've started flying and traveling around the world. We've also kicked off with something called the Game Forest Club as well, where we contribute €15 a month for every employee towards planting trees and creating forests, because we want to offset our carbon footprint that we're going to be creating by flying again. Wellbeing, it's important that we focus on that. We work on a partnership, and we've got a wellbeing charter that we've worked on with Safe in Our World, the charity that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, and that's really, really important to us. And we can do that because the people at Curve want to get involved. We're working for an independent company. We're not working for a corporate that have a different process of going through this. We define it ourselves. And then WFH, work from home. And what is the right thing to do? At the beginning of pandemic, working from home seemed straightforward. We weren't in the office. We had one option: you are working from home. That's all about, do you have the equipment, do you have the bandwidth, do you have the desk? We spent a lot of money making sure people had the right chairs. We know how to support people going to work at home. Coming back into the office, no one really knows. It's a variable. What do people want? We're trying to do surveys all the time. What appeals to you? How nervous are you? How excited are you? We've been working on a trial which will continue. We're in open beta, where our office capacity holds about 45 people. We've got 67, so they don't all fit in. But we are open 5 days a week, and we have capacity of 30 people, and it's first come, first served. If you want to come, come. If you don't. Some days we have 4 people, some days we have 30 people. And we'll keep working like that until we start to get a critical mass and just identify who likes what. We decided to stop doing a survey before and start to do a survey during or after, based on people's behavior. But being a little bit cheesy now, this makes me smile, because I think work from home, should it be work for happiness? How about that? Genius play on words. And it makes me smile of how cheesy it is, really. But if we don't enjoy going to work, why are we going to work? So that has to be the right thing. So regardless of what I think, do we want 5 days a week with 100% attendance in the office? I want people to be happy. I want people to be building good connections, because we get better output from them. We attract more developers, and we do a better job. And that, I think, brings me to the summary, to the final slide. 4 sections to think about. The market is growing. Surprise, I've been in it for 25 years. It's always been growing. Technology is evolving. I don't think we'll ever give a presentation where we say it isn't. It evolves. But the constant is content, and the constant is creators. And through that content and creators, for someone like Curve Games, is to make sure that we are able to form strong partnerships, unique partnerships, demonstrating empathy with relationships that will stand the test of time. I mentioned about Sports Interactive. 20 years with one developer. Someone who, in Mars, been so influential in my career. That's really stood the test of time, and that's what we want to do. But to be able to do it, we've got to have the right people. To have the right people could be about money, but I think for us, it's about impact. It's about, what do you want this company to be? What do you want your work community to be? Come to work to enjoy yourself. And that's that. Thank you.